floor to Emily Ferguson. She's been a student of mine and an advisee of mine for the last 4 years, and so I'm happy to have her share the floor with you. She's done such a wonderful job with this presentation that I told my husband he had to come along because I said she did so much good work and I want him to learn too. So here we go. So you teach him a lot for me now, okay? So we'll let Emily begin her presentation.
Thank you, Dr. Elmira. Okay, thank you guys all so much for coming today. It really means a lot to me. So we're going to go ahead and dive right in. Today we're going to be talking about decoding challenging behaviors in the classroom, and then also give you insights and strategies for teachers on how to deal with these challenging behaviors. Okay, so first off, let's define our key term for the day, challenging behaviors. A challenging behavior is behaviors that interrupt instruction and have a negative impact on the learning environment. Examples of challenging behaviors would be avoiding tasks, refusing to do work, arguing with the teacher, yelling and hitting, damaging property, and so much more. Basically, it's anything that interrupts instructional time in the classroom or creates an unsafe environment. Challenging behaviors not only negatively affect the learning environment, but also everybody in it. So for example, with teachers, according to a survey conducted in 2023, 70% of teachers reported an increase in challenging classroom behaviors, and 55% of teachers reported feeling burnt out and considered leaving the education field. So clearly we have a problem here. Also in 2020, during the school year, 48 out of 50 states reported that they had a teacher shortage within their state. For students, disruptive behavior accounts for 2.4 hours of instructional time that's lost each week. In the course of a year, that equals almost 3 weeks of instructional time that's lost. This leads to lack of success for students academically, and then also just once again a negative classroom environment. Okay, so today we're going to be talking about what is the main reason and cause for the rise of challenging behaviors in the classroom. And then, like I said before, what are effective strategies teachers can use to manage these behaviors. So originally, before I did any research, this is what I originally thought the answer was going to be because I thought I was so smart and knew all about it and stuff. So this is what I thought, and some sources did agree with me, but it's not the underlying cause. But I do want to go over these because it definitely does have an impact and an effect on students. So the first one is screen time and social media. The CDC reported that the average 8 to 10-year-old spends 4 to 6 hours on screens per day. The maximum amount for this age is only supposed to be 2 hours. Students are getting phones younger and younger. We're seeing this in elementary school. 2nd, 3rd graders are having phones now. TikTok, Instagram Reels, all of that is exploding. And humans are becoming so used to instant gratification and quick stimulus. And that's making our students lose attention and they can't focus for long periods of time. Also, another huge one is the family environment. This includes their socioeconomic status, family life and support, and how they were raised. What's their home life like? Do they have divorced parents, single parents? How many kids do they have? Is it an abusive home life? Is it a supportive home life? Are they poor? Are they richer? All of this affects a student. And then also external stressors. External stressors include bullying, balance, so extracurricular activities are becoming huge. Kids seem to be involved in more and more and more stuff after school, and those are high expectations for them. And then also family concerns, so financial, health, and then disappointing their parents, teachers, and peers. And then also self-esteem. A lot of kids today have very low self-esteem. The dangerous part about these external factors is that if they are not managed, they can lead to heightened levels of depression and anxiety in children. A study done in 2023 showed that 1 out of 6 children in elementary school classrooms suffer from anxiety and depression. This is a 4% increase just from last year in 2022. Okay, so the question then becomes, which of these underlying causes is escalating disruptive behaviors? And the truth is, the answer may not be any of these underlying causes. Now, I'm not saying that these factors aren't important because these factors do worsen the frequency and severity of the bad behavior, but it's unlikely that it's the actual root cause for the increase in misbehaviors teachers have recently reported. Many people attribute student misbehavior to out-of-school factors and believe that because of this, a student's outcomes in academics and even a student's behavior in school are out of the teacher's control. However, current research done by the ASCD Educational Leadership is showing that this might actually not be the case. Okay. So what I found was that majority of behavior struggles often stem from students having weaker cognitive skills and development, and executive functions. So we're going to go through and define these key terms. So cognitive development is defined as changes in our mental ability as we grow and mature. This was originally proposed by a Swiss psychologist named John Piaget, and he proposed that intelligence grows and develops through a series of stages. So the 4 stages are sensory motor, pre-operational, concrete, and formal. You begin these stages right at birth, and they usually last until about your mid-20s or early 20s. Each of these stages helps a child to work through the cognitive skills development process, which helps a children to acquire, organize, and learn to use knowledge. It enables children to learn new things and understand and participate in the world around them and to solve challenges by themselves. And then next we have cognitive skills. So cognitive development lays the foundation for the skills to develop for cognitive skills. So they work hand in hand with each other. And cognitive skills are processes our brains use to acquire, manipulate, store, and use information. Examples of cognitive skills are memory, language development, problem solving, and then critical analysis. Cognitive skills enable a student to think, read, learn, reason, pay attention, and remember. Pretty crucial skills for inside of the classroom. If some of these cognitive skills are not fully developed in a student, then the student will likely struggle in school. School requires students to be able to pay attention for long periods of time, recall past information, think and problem solve, read, and to learn new information. Okay, and then next we have executive functions. Executive functions actually build off cognitive skills. They work together. They're both dealing with the frontal lobe of the brain, and so that's where both of these processes are developed. So executive functions are higher level thinking patterns that everyone uses to organize and act out information. Essentially, executive functions are just higher level cognitive skills. Adults and children alike use these skills every day to do things like plan their time, focus their attention, hold information in their minds, and juggle priorities. Kids develop these executive functions once again from birth until about the mid-20s, early 20s. So there are 8 key executive functions that we're briefly going to go through today. 3 of these executive functions correlate directly to the cognitive development, and those are the ones that are highlighted up there: working memory, cognitive flexibility, and inhibition control. These are the main 3 executive functions. However, all the other executive functions fall under the umbrella of cognitive development. Okay, so the first one we're going to go through is working memory. Working memory is the ability to hold and recall information after it has been understood, retained, and retrieved. This executive function helps you to follow multiple step instructions, remember what you read, plan your next action, keep key information in mind, and process new information. Inhibition control is a skill that focuses on how well you control your thoughts, emotions, and focus. So it's basically being able to regulate your emotions and think before you act out. If you've ever worked with younger kids, this is very, very hard for them. So they really have to think about it. The next one is cognitive flexibility. This helps you to adapt to change. Our world is constantly changing, and students need to be able to switch between tasks, adapt to changing demands, think about something in more than one way, or multitask. This function is crucial because it helps a child adjust their behavior based on the situation that they are in. Emotional control is the ability to manage and control emotional reactions, especially in difficult and stressful situations. This involves controlling feelings like frustration, anger, or excitement in any setting that they're in. The next one, planning and prioritizing, and then also organization, is the ability to set goals, create a plan to achieve them, and organize actions in an effective manner. Organization and planning is very important in the classroom, even just basic things with the students having their desk organized where all of their notes are and their worksheets and everything like that. Task initiation is the ability to begin tasks without undue procrastination. I am still developing that one. It involves the ability to start working on activities independently without needing constant reminders or motivation.
I can attest to that. But we do it together.
We do it together. And then the final one is self-monitoring. It's the ability to regularly check in with your own behavior, academic work, or personal goals. This process allows you to see how well you're doing, identify areas of improvement, and make adjustments as needed. This is critical for building self-awareness and self-regulation, which are essential for success. So these executive functions are crucial for everyone, however, especially for students in school. Students need to have developed executive functions in order to reach their full potential in school. In school, students with strong executive functions complete their assignments on time, remember what they were taught in class, participate actively, filter outside distractions away to stay on task, develop stronger relationships with their peers and teachers, and easily maintain self-control. However, students with weak executive functions may struggle with these same tasks. Within a school environment, children who struggle with executive functions are under more pressure than ever. Okay, so the main causes behind the rises of the challenging behaviors are executive functions and cognitive skills. But why specifically have we seen such a rise in behavior, especially over the past few years? And I don't want to talk about this topic, but we are going to talk a little bit about COVID-19 today, because that was a really, really big factor, especially on children's development. So during the COVID-19 pandemic, children experienced significant changes in their daily routines and activities. They were forced to be in confinement for long periods of time, experienced social isolation, and were dealing with family stressors, loss of family members, illness, and financial instability. Because of that, this led to children experiencing high levels of stress, anxiety, depression, and loneliness at levels that we've never seen before. During crisis and disaster, executive functions are meant to help you self-regulate behavior, adjust to changes, and solve problems. However, executive functions are the cognitive systems process that is most vulnerable to stress, which is not good, especially during a stressful time of the pandemic. As a result of the COVID-19 pandemic, during a time when stress levels were high, for everyone, children's cognitive development was severely affected, specifically when it came to executive functions and cognitive skills. And we are still seeing those results today in the classroom, from elementary school students all the way up to high school students as well. Okay, so now that we've identified the issue, let's go into some strategies that teachers can use to help students develop their executive functions and also their cognitive skills. Because these are things that we can actually help students develop and so that they can succeed in the classroom. So the first one, I keep clicking my computer, it's not even working. The first one is brain breaks. Many teachers see brain breaks as a waste of time and also a distraction for students. However, this is a huge mistake. Incorporating breaks into learning plays an important role because it is the period of time when our brains can take time to compress and consolidate the memories of what we just practiced. Research actually shows that after learning new information, our brains continue to work, using cognitive downtime as a vital staging ground to process, organize, and integrate learned information. The key is neural play, which means that after practicing a skill, our brains rapidly cycle through the experience, compressing and imprinting the materials to optimize storage and recall. So basically, our brains need time after we hear and learn something to be able to process it all and store it so that we're able to recall it later. Judy Willis, a teacher and neurologist, concluded that elementary school students can work for 10 to 15 minutes, but then they need a 3 to 5 minute brain break in order to recall and process all the information. And then high school students need 20 to 30 minutes of work with a 3 to 5 minute brain break as well. And these brain breaks don't have to be super complicated. It can simply be moving to a different part of the room, stretching, or even singing a song. High schoolers might rant you against that, but elementary school students love it. So, another great strategy is recess. The American Academy of Pediatrics states recess is essential to children's health and development. It provides a much-needed break from the structure of a classroom, which leads to many cognitive, social, and physical benefits. So we're going to go over some of the cognitive, social, and physical benefits of recess for our students. So on a cognitive level, studies have shown that after recess, students are more focused and better listeners because they have had time to burn off their pent-up energy during recess. In fact, according to the CDC, the physical activity involved at recess improves students' attention, memory, and concentration. This helps students to stay on task in the classroom. Recess also helps students socially by providing them time of unconstructed play not governed by adults, time to be independent. During recess, the students must solve and negotiate problems on their own when an obstacle arises without an adult. This helps students to work on their problem-solving skills, communication, resolving conflict, and also teamwork. Recess also provides opportunities for students to get to know their peers and to build those friendships within the classroom. And finally, recess is huge for physical development. The U.S. Department of Health recommends that students get a minimum of 1 hour of physical activity per day. This physical activity reduces stress and allows students to feel more relaxed. Recess also is huge for helping students to develop their gross and fine motor skills. which include running, jumping, climbing, balancing, throwing, kicking, and more. These all have to be developed. They don't just come naturally for all kids. And then the next one that helps all areas is morning meetings. Morning meetings are a structured daily routine that provides a supportive transition for students as they enter into the classroom each day. I am a huge supporter and fan of morning meetings. Even in my future classroom with the upper grades, I still plan on having morning meetings just because they are so good for students' emotional development and also just welcoming them into the classroom as well in the morning. This practice helps build safe and inclusive environments by providing opportunities for students to check in with each other and connect on a social and emotional level. It is also a great way to ensure that all of your students feel heard, valued, and respected, which is very, very important. Okay, and then now we're going to go back to those 3 executive functions that we talked about that connected with the cognitive skills from earlier. So the 3 key ones were impulse control, working memory, and cognitive flexibility. We're just going to go through a few strategies for each of these of how you can develop them. So how you can develop impulse control, very simply, is just hang posters and visuals around the classroom of procedures and also keys to be able to help students with assignments and projects. Another one is role playing. This one is huge at the beginning of the year, especially when you have a new group of students. You have to teach them your procedures and roles of the classroom. So you do that right away in the morning, whether that's at morning meeting, and you have your students practice that procedure until they have it nailed down. Then they know the expectations and routines of the classroom. If a student later on starts not following those, what do? We review them again so that those procedures are enforced into their heads. Another great one is classroom jobs. This gives your students a sense of responsibility and motivation in the classroom, and they're super easy to help and assign out. And they also might help you as a teacher. You can have one of your kids hand out papers as you're trying to scramble and get something else ready for the lesson. Also start the lesson with a game. This just helps increase motivation for some students. Sometimes they just need a little extra encouragement and a little bit of fun before you start. And then also stretching, just another great brain break, and then reflective activities. These allow children to reflect on their behaviors and emotions, just kind of check in with how they're doing. Some examples is to provide a calming corner in the room, a place where they can just go to de-stress. Have students journal, morning meetings, daily affirmations, breathing exercises, and then for the younger kids, have stuffed animals around the room that they can use as supports and friends. The next one, working memory. Ways that you can help students with this is to review at the start of a lesson. This is basically giving kids, getting their brains warmed up before they start. Next is using comprehensive reading techniques. So when you get done teaching a lesson, having the kids summarize what they learned, or identifying just a couple main points, and even making diagrams. This will help the information become more concrete, and they'll be able to recall it later. And then finally, provide memory activities. These can be a wide variety, but some of them that I thought of was choreographed actions to songs, chain storytelling, scavenger hunts, and memory sequence games are all great examples and strategies. The last one is cognitive flexibility. One way that we can help our students develop this executive function is by modeling flexibility. Be ready to accommodate and adjust. Nothing ever goes as planned, and I think as teachers, we definitely know that. And one way that we can show our students how to be flexible is not to get anxious, just to roll with the punches, accommodate the best we can, and know that it's all going to work out in the end, even if it's not exactly like we planned. The next one is to encourage students to think of different approaches to problems. So often teachers ask students questions that only have one correct answer or only show one way to do a task. However, this one-size-fits-all strategy does not work for a diverse group of students and individuals. There is not only one way to solve a problem, and as teachers we need to help our students to see this by teaching them to think outside of the box. So this can be done by asking open-ended questions, modeling multiple solutions, and encouraging collaborative problem-solving skills so that all the ideas are getting laid out on the table. The next one is training students perspective talking. This basically just means teaching them how to have a civil and respectful conversation. Not everybody agrees, believe it or not, and so there's going to be different beliefs and opinions about a whole bunch of topics, and so you need to teach your students how to be able to communicate their opinions, but then also to listen and to respect and to be able to have a conversation with someone who doesn't agree with them. And then finally, working through the process of applying problem-solving techniques. By doing this, we are helping our students to be problem solvers and come up with solutions, which is a skill that everybody needs, especially as adults too. Okay, so wrapping up for the conclusion, challenging behaviors have been on the rise in the classroom around the U.S. over the past few years. Many people blame technology, family dynamics, parenting styles, and external factors for this sudden rise. However, research has shown that this is not the case. Although these factors may worsen the frequency and severity of bad behavior, it is unlikely that they are the actual causes for the increase in misbehavior. The cause of it is unlikely that they are the actual causes that increase misbehavior. It is caused by the lack of cognitive development and executive functions within the brain. And the reality is that students rely on their executive functions to perform to their full potential in school. And so this was kind of my concluding statement and just motivation, especially for the teachers in the room as we're going out from this presentation. But our students need help more than ever. And the truth is that the rise in challenging behaviors is not out of our control. If teachers are willing to implement effective strategies into their classrooms to help students to develop their executive functions and cognitive skills to create a more welcoming environment, we will see positive results. These students need someone who is willing to make a change and support them. Are you willing to help them out? Okay, thank you guys all for coming, and is there any questions? Yes.
I have so many questions and comments,
Go
so
ahead.
many. You did a fantastic job. Like, this was incredible. But I guess one of them, how would you respond to like traditional parents, when you're or parents or teachers who feel that you're, I guess this is, I don't know how to rephrase it, but I guess that we're just so stuck in their idea that it's the phones. Not that they don't have any impact or anything like that, and that it's, I don't know, how would you say that? So come back to me later. I'll write it down.
Okay. Go ahead, Dr. Walsh.
Okay, I think the COVID research is fascinating. There's been a lot of COVID research with that, and just how it impacted different ages differently depending on what the restrictions were and what students went through. So, is looking for the future, are we thinking that as soon as everybody who was alive when COVID happened is going to go back to having these increased executive functions, or is there going to be permanent trickle-down effects that we see maybe these executive functions not being modeled for younger students, or is there any forecast on this type of way?
That is a really good question. I'm going to be honest, I didn't look into that or stumble upon it upon my research, but I truly think, especially in just the world and day and age we're in now, where everything is so busy and so fast-paced and there's so much more pressure put on students, I think just in general, students have just more depression and anxiety just from the stress that is in the world around them. So personally, I don't think that after the last generation that experienced COVID gets out of school that all of our students are gonna be perfectly fine again, the behaviors are gonna de-escalate. Because I think also those students, they're also growing up and they're gonna be raising children as well, which is probably a lot of the trauma and a lot of that is probably gonna be dumped back onto them. But yeah, that's a good question. I actually would be curious to research that a little bit, so.
So next semester you're student teaching?
Yes.
Where are you student teaching at?
St. Teresa's in Lincoln, 4th grade.
What are you hoping to implement from your presentation of student teaching?
Question. Honestly, I'm really hoping, I haven't got to meet my cooperating teacher yet. I'm going to be doing that in 2 weeks, which I'm really excited to go into her classroom. But if she doesn't do morning meeting, I'm really hoping, even though it is 4th grade, that she would let me start morning meeting in her classroom and be able to lead that as well. And then some of just the basic strategies that I was talking about, just like the brain breaks within the classroom, and then also the reviews before the lessons and stuff. I'm just hoping to be able to implement more of that, just to kind of help jog, especially their memory, and especially their social and emotional learning, because I feel like that's really, really key.
Thinking about using those executive functions and working with those students, do you think that's something that's going to be generally applied to all students in the classroom, or that with time and observation, teachers are going to be able to cater their interactions to those students? So if you notice a student that really struggles with working memory or with impulse control, is it going to be more of an individualized growth plan, or are you going to apply it the same to all students?
good question, because yeah, we do have like, especially in education, IEPs, which are individualized education plans, and so I think a lot of these strategies could be used just towards one student, but also the strategies aren't like really big that you have to change everything about your classroom, like the way you teach and all of these different things, like they really are just small little changes that you can make that a lot of the other students that maybe aren't struggling with that executive function would actually really benefit from, and they're not even realizing it, but then you're also targeting that one student that really needs help. So I think for myself personally, I would just use these strategies for the whole class, because I think every student could benefit from it, so. Did you come up with your question?
Guys, how do you respond to teachers and parents who just feel like the only way to go when it comes to discipline is just authoritarian, like, just like disciplinary, like just to really like lean into that rather than like try these like new things. Like I can see some people looking at the methods that you brought up and just saying that that's just some, I don't know, okay, I don't know how I was to say it, but like some liberal idea, and that like really, we're just wasting our time.
Yeah, one topic that I didn't talk about that I talked about in my paper was one of the new parenting styles that is becoming really relevant, especially over the past 2 years, is called the New Age parenting style. And basically this style is parents want to be best friends with their kids, and they are taking away the authoritative and the disciplinary techniques in hopes that they can help their children to just become self-aware on their own. But the reality of it is that can be a good strategy, but if you offer a 2-year-old a popsicle or an apple, they're going to choose the popsicle and stuff like that. Like, they just don't understand what's actually good for them. And so as parents, even though it may seem like we're strict and our kids might be like, oh, you're so mean, like we're actually helping them. But there is definitely a level as well, especially when it comes to discipline. I believe that discipline is necessary, but I think also these new strategies incorporated in with discipline are the balance that we need, because we don't want to be totally authoritative, but then we also don't want to be like letting our kids do whatever they want, because that's not healthy for them either. So we need a good balance in between.
Emily and I had discussions too. It's making awareness. Some of this is really fresh and I mean, it's been around, but the simple strategies and things, it's like now we want our students to be the advocates and go out there. Because we had the discussion about a lot of school systems are taking away recess. And everything that you stated about recess, it just kind of was heartbreaking to me that we've taken some of that away. So like I've suggested to her is, go tell your principal, show them the research and things like that. I just think we have to become stronger advocates and share what we know and what we're learning. So.
I agree, especially just with all the new research coming out. Like, nobody likes change. I don't like change, and I'll be the first to admit that. But also, if there's better strategies that are going to help teachers and our students to become successful and achieve and reach the stars, we need to be willing to change slowly and to help them the best we can. So sometimes the old ways are good, but there's also new ways that are good as well. So.